Auggie Me, the Pluto chapter. 3:50 p.m. Seven Nation Army, answered Mr. Bowles like he was impressed by the song choice. That's an awesome song, Elijah. Is that by Europe too? John asked, since we'd all agreed a few weeks ago, after much arguing, to play The Final Countdown by Europe at the spring concert. Elijah snickered and made a face. Dude, he answered, not looking at John or me, it's the White Stripes. Elijah had long blonde hair that he was really good at talking through. Never heard of them, John said cheerfully, which I wished he hadn't said. Truth is, I hadn't heard of them either, but I knew enough to pretend that I knew them, at least until I could download that song tonight. John wasn't so great at the social stuff that goes on inside a rock band. Lots of group dynamic stuff to sort out. You have to kind of just nod and go along if you want to fit in. Then again, John wasn't very good at fitting in that way. Elijah laughed and turned around to tune his guitar. John looked at me over his crazy little round glasses and made a, "Is it me or are they crazy?" face. I shrugged in response. John and I had become our own little group inside this rock band. We hung out together during breaks and made jokes, especially since the other three guys hung out together and made their own jokes. Every Thursday after school, I'd go over to John's house and we'd practice together. Or we'd listen to some classic rock songs so we could sound like we knew as much about rock music as the other guys. And then we'd make suggestions about what songs we could play. So far, we had suggested Yellow Submarine and Eye of the Tiger. But Elijah, Harry, and Eno had nixed them both. That was fine, though, because I was really into The Final Countdown, which had been Mr. Bowles' suggestion. It's the final countdown. I don't know, guys, Mr. Bowles said. I'm not sure there's going to be enough time between today and Wednesday to learn a brand new song. Maybe we should stick to The Final Countdown for now. He played the opening notes of that song on the keyboard, and John started bopping his head. Then Elijah started playing a great ripoff of his bass, which turned out to be the opening of Seven Nation Army. As if on cue, Harry and Eno started playing too. It was pretty obvious that they had practiced that song a lot of times before today. I have to say, they sounded amazing. Somewhere in the second chorus, Mr. Bowles put up his hand for them to stop jamming. Okay, dudes, he said, nodding. You're sounding absolutely awesome. Killer bass, Elijah, but everyone's got to be able to play the song for the spring concert, right? These two dudes need a chance to learn the song too. He pointed to me and John. But it's just basic chords, Elijah said, like C and G, B, D. You know D, right? He looked at us like we were an alien species. You seriously can't do that? I can do that, I answered quickly, forming the chords with my fingers. I hate the B chord, John said. It's so easy. But what about the final countdown? John whined. I've been practicing that for a few weeks. He started playing the same opening part that Mr. B had just played, but honestly, he didn't sound that good. Dude, that was awesome, Mr. B said, high-fiving John. I noticed Elijah smiling at Harry, who looked down like he was trying not to laugh. Guys, we have to be fair here, Mr. B said to Elijah. Here's the thing, answered Elijah. We can only play one song at the spring concert, and we want it to be Seven Nation Army. Majority rules. But that's not what we said we were going to play, yelled John. It's not fair that you guys agreed to play The Final Countdown, and me and Chris have spent a lot of time learning it. I have to admit John had the guts talking back to a sixth grader like that. Sorry, dude, said Elijah, fiddling with his amp, but he didn't seem sorry. Okay, guys, let's settle down, said Mr. B with his eyes closed. Mr. B, said Edo, holding up his hand like he was in class. The thing is, this is going to be our last spring concert before the three of us graduate. He pointed his drumstick at Harry and Elijah and himself. Yeah, we're going to middle school next year, agreed Elijah. We want to play a song that we feel really good about. The Final Countdown doesn't represent us musically. But that's not fair, said John. This is an after-school rock band, not just your band. You can't just do that. Dude, you can play whatever you want next year, Elijah answered. He looked like he wanted to flick John's glasses off his face. You can play Puff the Magic Dragon for all I care. This made the other guys laugh. Mr. Bowles finally opened his eyes. Okay, guys, enough, he said, holding up his hands. Here's what we're going to do. Let's see how well you pick up 7 Nation Army today and tomorrow. He said this while pointing at me and John. And we'll practice a little today, and we'll also tighten up the final countdown. Then tomorrow we'll see which song sounds better. I'm going to be the one to make the final decision to which song we play, okay? Sound good? John nodded yes eagerly, but Elijah rolled his eyes. So let's start with the final countdown, said Mr. Bowles. He clapped his hands twice. From the beginning. Let's go, guys. The final countdown from the top. Wake up. Harry, Elijah, get us going, man. On 4. A 1, 2, 3. We played the song. Even though Elijah and the other guys weren't into it, they totally rocked it. In fact, we sounded pretty amazing together, I thought. That sounded awesome, said John when it was over. He held his hand in the air to high-five me, which I did a little reluctantly. Whatever, said Elijah, shaking hair off of his face. We spent the rest of the class running through 7 Nation Army, but John kept making mistakes and asking us to start over, and it didn't sound good at all. You guys sound terrific, said John's mother, who had just come in the band room. She tried to clap while holding her wet umbrella. Mr. B looked at his watch. Whoa, it's 5:30? Oh, man, dudes, I got a big gig tonight. We have to wrap up. Let's go. Everything in the locker room. I started putting my guitar in the case. Step on it, guys, Mr. B said, putting the mics away. We all hurried up and put our instruments in the locker room. We'll see you tomorrow, Mr. B, said John, who was the first ready to leave. Bye, Elijah. Bye, Bye, Harry. He waved at them. See you tomorrow. I saw the 3 of them shoot each other looks, but they nodded goodbye to John. Bye, Chris, said John loudly from the door. Bye, I mumbled. I liked the guy, I really did. One-on-one, he was awesome, but he could be so clueless, too. It was like being friends with SpongeBob. After John and his mother had left, Elijah went up to Mr. Bowles, who was wrapping up the mic cords. Mr. B, he said ultra politely, can we please play 7 Nation Army on Wednesday night? In that moment, Eno's mom arrived to pick up the 3 of them. We'll see tomorrow, dude, Mr. Bowles answered distractedly, throwing the last of the equipment into the locker room. Yeah, you're just going to choose the final countdown, said Elijah, and then he walked out the door. Bye, guys, I said to Harry and Eno as they followed Elijah out. Bye, dude, they both said to me. Mr. B turned the key in the locker room. Then he looked at me. He was surprised I was still there. Where's your mom? I guess she's running late. Don't you have a cell phone? I nodded, fished my phone out of my backpack, and turned it on. There were no texts or calls from Mom. Just call her, he said after a few minutes. I've got to get out of here, dude.